Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where we talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Supergirl. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. First and foremost, we're picking up in the aftermath of last episode with William's death, Esme's kidnapping. Lex left his message, basically in exchange for all of the totems, including the yet-to-be-attained Destiny totem, they'll release Esme. And obviously Alex and Kelly, this is the hardest thing for them because it's like someone they love is in danger, and it's like they want to protect their daughter. This is their daughter, so they're willing to do anything. And I think that's the interesting element of this episode. I think that's the through line of this episode. A lot of it is whatever it takes. Everyone's got their perspectives on whatever it takes, especially Kara. Kara's plan is to get all of the totems and use their powers, use the power that also on her for herself to finally rescue Esme and deal with Lex and Nixley. Because for her, it's like she's like losing William like that. It's like losing someone else. She's like, I took my eye off the ball. I should have had my ears out. And William died protecting Esme. It's like, I've had enough. I'm going to end this once and for all. And John even feels like, right, I let things, like, I was supposed to keep an eye on things, and I didn't see this coming. Once again, it's Lex. He's always going to be one step ahead. So they're willing to do whatever it takes. But for, Alex and Kelly, they're already running through their minds on the what ifs because they don't want to. They want to focus on, everything's going to be okay. It has to be, because if not, all they have are the alternatives. And Alex is thinking, if I'd done this differently, if I'd done this, maybe Esme wouldn't even be in this situation. It's like our daughter, she must be so scared because we promised we would never leave her. And under these circumstances, she might feel like she's alone. And even Esme was saying that to Nixley, her home situations never stick around. And she finally found, a home where it felt good. And it's just right, it was taken from her. And it's just so for Alex and Kelly, they're willing to do everything, whatever it takes. Then you have Nia and Brainy working to try and find the Dream Totem, which they're also dealing with their own situation, because it's with things as they are, plus there's their own circumstances they still have to, deal with, but obviously it's because Nia's scared of, what if I see something bad, what if, Esme ends up like William? It's good or bad, knowing the truth is something you can at least do something with. It might not all be good, but at the very least, knowing the truth, you'll have what you need to know. It's even us, we can figure out what to do because we know the truth about my circumstances of going back to the future. It was only going to be a matter of time, but we know the truth, and we can deal with that, so together they dream of where the Dream Totem is, which, interestingly enough, it's tied to the Sisters of Fate. And I'm like, oh, that's awesome. I thought that of course it would be. I was like, granted, you guys don't know, once again, it's one of those, in between, you never know if, the legends all hung around, everyone else in the Arrowverse and was oh yeah, hey, this is Charlie. But because by the time Charlie's situation came up, the legends were doing their own thing at the time. Which, there still could have been the situation of, because I was about to say, the last time Sarah ran into the rest of the Arrowverse, it's she was, it was before, because that was before Charlie was revealed as the, that was before the crossover, I think that was before, they found out about Charlie being a Sister of Fate, didn't they? Maybe not, regardless, because she is the one in particular they were looking for. It's Clothos, the one who actually weaves, and that's, if I'm not mistaken, that was Charlie. She was the one that actually weaved the strings of it, because I know Athropos, she's the one who cut them, because she's the one that killed not Berea Hard, good God, Trails of Code's still coming out. Barrod. But regardless, I was oh, that's kind of a nice touch. But once again, it's you can make that, because we also go hey, we know one of those Sisters of Fate, because she's out there somewhere living her life. Tangents and all that aside, I was oh, that's kind of a nice touch. It's yeah, it's just a little wink and nod, because it's hey, we know one of those Sisters of Fate. You might too, if, once again, the teams kind of keep separate, so you probably don't know. They kind of probably know, but I'm going on a whole tangent. I do apologize. I just thought that was just kind of a nice touch. But by the time she does get the Totem of Destiny, Alex shows up to take it, because it's like there's no, like, she's doing whatever it takes to get her daughter back, because it's like, can you guarantee me that you will be able to get Esme back 100%, like safety build? It's like, can you also, you know, because it's like she can't 100% guarantee that Lex can be trusted on keeping up his end of the bargain, but she can't, you know. And that's a sad thing, because I feel like it's a little like, oh, like, why can't you trust your sister in this situation to, you know, they, of course she wouldn't let anything happen to Esme, but it's like, it's not, you know, because it's like, right, if I didn't do something, if I didn't do what I'm doing right now, I'd never forgive myself, and I could never forgive you if, like, something happened to Esme because we didn't do this, we didn't give into what, but it's like, for her, it's like, I've seen the Destiny Totem, like, what it showed me, this devastation, the power that Lex and, Nixley will have, like countries coming, like people coming together, like the army coming to, like, to try and stop them, and it's like, it's not enough. Like, there's so much devastation and destruction. But interesting thing was, because even the Destiny Totem was like, you'll have to face your destiny without it. So I guess it knew how things were going to play out. You know, once again, playing into the question of, like, is everything set in stone, or how, you know, malleable time is. The Legends will make you think, like, oh, things are malleable. Flash would make you think that things are malleable, yet potentially set in stone in certain regards as well. But you know, but there are quote unquote fixed points in time that you can't really do anything about. So there's that angle to it. But Kara couldn't stop Alex, because it's like, right, who am I to try and stop her from doing whatever she can to save her daughter? There was also a scene I had skipped over. Lena and Andrea snuck into the watchtower and ended up, obviously William's body had already been moved. And for her, she's like, you were wrong about me. I am a monster, Lena. Like, if it was, like, once again, every time my back is into a corner, I do something like this. And it's like, because of me, like, William's dead. It's like, yes, like, okay, so what are you going to do about it? It's kind of what Lena was saying. Because for her, it's like, I've done far worse than what you know. We've all made mistakes, but the problem is, like, the thing is to not give into that darkness. You know, it's like how you respond, and then, you know, what is, it seems like Andrea read the story because it's already out there about her, about Lex killing William, so that's already out there. So she published that, but beyond that, like, what is she going to do? I mean, you know, and I think we didn't see her for the rest of the episode, but I'm assuming Andrea's going to come through clutching in. I think when the time comes, like, Andrea will, like, have her chance to, like, potentially make things right, and, you know, make up for the mistakes she's made. Because for her, it's like, no matter what I do, I can't save William, but you can at least, like, help any. I think she's going to be a linchpin part of, like, what's going to come up and how this all ends. But aside from all that, you have Lex and Nixley trying to get the love totem from Esme, but the problem is that the Beauty and Beast situation that Lex kind of ends up referencing is that the rose petals are falling off, and it's like, once that happens, the love totem is going to move on to another, be reconstituted somewhere else. So they have to do this now, or for one, they're going to lose a little bit of their leverage, but also, like, lose the love totem. Obviously, Lex is like, oh, let me do this for you, which, you know, Nixley's like, no, I'm going to handle it on my own. If you love me so much, you also won't hurt that little girl, because despite everything, like, once again, she's a villain with morals, because it's like, yeah, I'm not going to hurt some innocent child, because I'm sure when she looks at the innocence that is Esme, she looks at herself. Like, she remembers being, you know, so I think that's why she's a little more sensitive when it comes to that in comparison to anyone else. So, because Esme's so young and hasn't been, like, sullied by the world, I think, kind of like, I guess disenchanted would be potentially the world, just like made jaded by the world, like she was. So she's trying to reach out to Esme, and she ends up, like, talking to Esme about the fact is that she loved drawing too, but, like, her dad destroyed all of her art, because I'm sure in his own mind he thought, like, oh, that's weak and that's pathetic, and so, like, he tried to do everything. Yeah, like, I think she said it herself, like, he was like, yeah, that was something not becoming of a princess, because you're supposed to be representative of power, like, you know, so it's like, that just makes you look weak. So But despite her trying to bond with Esme, it doesn't work and the petals continue to fall. Then we have Lillian pop out, which I think it's so fascinating. I'm playing the mother role and everything and talking to Lex about like, oh, like, be careful what moves he makes because he's playing a chess game. And I love that, you know, it's just she's trying to play the mother role, which she's like, you did try to poison me, even though, yes, it was a different nerf. You still did try to kill me, so... but it's like, for her, it's like, you in love, and she's laughing at the notion of him. It's like, oh, my sweet child, you don't love anyone. And what you should be, the choice is easy. Choose between this imp. It's like, because the moment she's like, she's also an alien, which I'm like, fifth dimensional imp. It's different. But I guess it's like, I guess it's all tomato to her. But I'm like, I guess it typically would be. But I'm like, that's why I'm like, they're beings from a different dimension. Like, does that, I guess technically, it's like, okay, that's what it, I mean, the Luthor's in particular, well, Lex and his mom definitely, like, hold that alien hate, but I'm like, fifth dimensional imps are, I guess they would consider aliens, I guess. But regardless, it's just like, choose. The only family you'll need, all the power you need is with us. You, me, and your sister. I'm like, you're still trying to make this family situation work. I love that. Because it's like, no, I want me and my children together. We'll rule with all this power. So you have to make a choice. And he's like, oh, the choice is easy. I'm going to choose Nixley. The woman's giving me nothing but love. Like, can you honestly say that you love me, mother? Like, you know. So I'm sure that's kind of where that comes from a little bit, too. And she's like, fine, and leaves. But she comes back and tries to whisper in Nixley's ear about, like, oh, can you really trust my son? Like, is everything really, like, oh, he said he doesn't want anything. He just wants to help you. Huh, sure. Are you sure about that? Huh, okay, if you say so. Like, I'm like, why are you spreading so much doubt? Because it's like, right, you don't want your son held back because you've seen how powerful and what his potential is. I love that because Lex is even telling you, like, we literally ran things in the future. We were like the power couple of the universe, but I guess that's just not enough for Lillian because it's like, blah, 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 oh yeah, you fancy her, blah 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 blah. It's nothing real, like, because you're incapable of love. What you want is power, and it's like, yeah, like, together we can wield that power together as a family, as the Luthors. Power is just kind of in our blood type of. It almost feels like she's got that type of perspective on things. But I just find that fascinating. That it's just like, your mom comes up in the end just to kind of screw over the circumstances of, like, your happy relationship. I mean, she put doubts into Nixley's head, but even I was kind of like, it turns out, like, Lex wasn't manipulating her. Maybe it was all sincere, but his mom coming in to ruin things, I guess he wasn't expecting that to be the little snafu, because she got into Nixley's ear, but also Nixley wouldn't have been happy because Lex is in this complicated situation because he's like, I promised not to do anything to Esme, but this is also about helping Nixley. So he was actually kind of torn between doing what she asked him to, but also doing stuff for her. So he ended up releasing the energy from, because I guess that would have, well, the orb was cracked open, so I'd assume Nixie is free, but I could be wrong. But it was like they needed his essence. So either that's kind of saying he's dead, but I'm pretty sure that's just kind of like, no, he's free in that moment. But it's like releasing his essence would allow them to get the love totem. And it did. It worked in the end. But obviously for Nixley, it's like, I knew I shouldn't have trusted you. Scaring a little girl like this. It's like, no. Everything I'm doing for you, we only have a little bit more time. See, it shows that I wouldn't betray you. It's like, yeah, but you still went behind my back and did this regardless. But he's like, everything I did was for you. She's like, you could never, your mother was right about you. Like, you could never love anyone but yourself. Like, that's what this all is. It's about your power. It's like, I guess it's a complicated thing because it's like, in the end, I guess you could make the argument he did choose power over love, because it's like, rather than just like waiting for your opportunity and trusting your partner, it's like, no, I know what's best for you. I'm like, so that's a little narcissistic. It's like, you still kind of put you thinking you know better than Nixley, like, rather than and because you couldn't let go of, like, because he's also a bit of a, he's a power control freak. So of course, like, that, his own insecurities, his own issues would lead. I mean, well, Nixley's got her own insecurities. She has a hard time trusting people, so it all came down to this. But she's like, oh, wow, I'm surprised you're not, like, because mom came back. I was like, oh, I'm surprised you're not pissed. And he was like, no, you ever get, like, just wait for the fireworks. So it's like, yeah, he moved on pretty quickly. So that was kind of an interesting thing. But obviously the Super Friends had the idea of how to deal with Nixley and Lex. And it was basically supercharging Kara with the sun's energy. It's like, cool, you could do that. But it would basically mean we'll use a particular, like a governmental satellite, because it was like, what was it, like the U.S. and South America, it was like a joint venture, like satellite. And it's like, yeah, we could point that at you, but it would basically make it so that the sun, it would take about 6 months for the sun to regenerate. And for Kara, it's like she's going to need this extra power. It's going to supercharge her, so she's going to be able to think faster. She's going to be able like to hear 50 times more. So it's like they'll be able to finally like narrow down where Nixley, Lex, and Esme are. But obviously, like even Lena was like, yeah, that'll like that much. Like throwing potentially the sun will be knocked off. It's like, you know, you'll be throwing off the entire universe doing what you're doing, like, and what kind of effect that would have on Earth. But for Kara, it's like, yeah, but this is a necessary sacrifice because there could be even more devastation if we leave Lex and Nixley to get the All-Stone. So, but when she does what she does, Secretary Brown is not too happy about it. I mean, a lot of people aren't, because it's like, wow, I thought Supergirl was our friend, and it's like yeah, this is scary. I mean, because it's also not like you told the world what you were up to. I mean, it was in a matter of minutes of like, yeah, you came up with this decision. But it's something the Super Friends have been kind of doing this season, was kind of doing stuff that public's not too keen on. Like, oh, like, kind of, once again, it's like there was some governmental oversight, so I guess that made it a little better. Now the Super Friends are kind of going a little unchecked. That's kind of been a through line I thought was kind of interesting this season. I mean, it's always been that worry. That's always been Lex's motivation for like hating the like Kryptonians the way he has, is because of like that unchecked power. I wonder, is it like, because obviously this came up in Superman and Lois, but I'm wondering, is it because it wasn't through the satellite and it was just straight up, he went up to the sun to absorb its energy, so it was a little different, like maybe he wasn't absorbing the large amounts that Kara was going to, even though it's like, I don't know, maybe writing situation, so maybe you can like, maybe there's not like a legitimate justification. Maybe it's just like they decided to write that for Superman and Lois, so the same rules don't apply because they decided to write it this way for Supergirl. Maybe there's a legitimate reason, like you can like rationalize like why like there doesn't seem to be any repercussions, I mean, at least that we're aware of, for Morgan Edge doing it in Superman and Lois. It doesn't seem like there was going to be any repercussions, like with the whole like sun needing 6 months to regenerate, like it is with Kara. But you know, once again, just the writing. I mean, I think that's the same way with comics. It's like, yeah, you just write the story you want to write, and it just, you know, so you kind of do your own thing. So just like there's like, oh, like going into space is kind of no issue, but maybe that's also because like, well, Clark is kind of going in the atmosphere. I don't know if he's technically punched through to space, like whether you count, like maybe he just got high enough in the atmosphere, but I think he has kind of gone in space, but like Kara needs a suit. Like, once again, like the inconsistencies there aren't always like clear, so once again, it's just like a writing thing of like how you decide to write it, I guess is what it is at the end of the day. I know I'm poking holes in that, but it's just like, it's always been that thing for me, because I'm like, well, because like I think even in the cartoons they've shown that like at least to deep space, Superman's needed a suit. I think it is a thing of like they can't breathe. So like I said, I think it's always part of the justification of like, you might seem like you're in space, but you're not that far out of the atmosphere that it's not as big of an issue. Maybe that's just whatever the case may be. So, either way, you know, they're shooting like crazy at Brainy, and luckily he's dodging the bullets, but at the end of it all, Kara stops him, because it's like, right, like, us doing this, like, how are we any different from Nixley and Lex, like, trying to get this power, like, yeah, we're trying to help people, but it, like, even Secretary Brown said it, it's like, right, you're hurting the people you're trying to help, like, even trying to stop Lex isn't a good enough reason to do this, because you're hurting so many people in the process. It's like, oh, we're no better than the bad guys if we're doing this. So they apologize and say, like, we'll find another way. I mean, it's like, granted, who knows, like, what damage that still did. Like, the sun might still be a bit of an, because, like, Kara was saying, like, then she'll, like, you know, find a way to, like, put it back into place and stuff, like, you know, so maybe there's kind of like, well, we'll kind of deal with that later, because we got to deal with the Lex thing, which, at the exchange, you know, Nixley was just going to hand Esme over, because she, you know, it's like, right, you're an innocent little girl, I'll help you, like, you know, just go back to your family, like, I'll reunite you with your moms. Lena and Nia were there to back them up, but Lex shows up, bridge explodes. Well, that was like after the All-Stone got formed, and then like it becomes hot potato with the Allstone, which I really appreciate. Just going from hand to hand, people getting blasted, getting knocked out of, like going just even landing in Lillian's hands at one point in time until John grabbed her. I loved like the electrical heel that she had on. I guess the Luthors are always prepared, right? But then like Esme shatters the Allstone, but it gets shattered into 3 shards, so no one has all of the power. But like Kara's got one, Alexa's got one, and Nixley's got one. Sadly, Lillian gets hurt in the process of like, wow, you do care about your son, despite you trying to kill him in a different Earth. It's probably like, it was a different Earth, different me. This is a new me. This is a very different version of me, so maybe that's the justification for it. But obviously for him, it's like, mother! And it's like, well, and now both of them start turning monstrous because of the Allstone's effects on him. And obviously even Lena comes over because it's like, despite everything, this is your mom. Like, despite all that she's done, the complicated thing of like, yeah, Lex is still your brother. You want him taken down. You don't want him dead because that's not the right way to handle things. You want him locked up, but you don't, well, to be fair, she did, I had to take that back and say, she did kill him on the previous Earth. So I was like, I can't really 100% say that, so regardless, I was about to, I had to take that back because it's like, yeah, but she also knows that, so she won't cross that line again. But it's like, yeah, despite everything, that's still your mom, so you're not going to want her dead. So, but now it's a situation of like, well, what do they do? Like, Kara does have her shard of the Allstone, but she's like, no, like, I already made that mistake again of trying to use power, because like using this power is already hurting people, because the Allstone is made up of the totems, which represent all these different aspects of humanity, love, hope. And the more Nixley and Lex are bouncing all over the place, using them up, the more they're taking it away from everyone on Earth. And so they have to find a different way to defeat them. Kara, needs time, to process everything. And I think that's that interesting thing of just about the supers, of just like flying in the sky and just like listening into Earth, and just like, probably more specifically everyone in National City, just like trying to think and figure things out while you're also like listening to people in trouble throughout the city. Like, people are scared, alone, hopeless. She hears a speech from Orlando. Everyone's black and white because of everything being drained from them. But in that moment for him, it's like, speaking of that, I know you feel hopeless, but in his moments like this, you kind of have to stand up and fight. Like, he's like, I feel it in my heart. You might feel like love and all the hope is gone, but it's there. You just have to feel it. Like I feel it. You just have to feel it too. And like in that and it's a lesson that she learned, that despite everything, remember when they destroyed the Hope Totem, she believed, like, no, like, she knows that there's a way to get that back. Like, even if it's still there in every person, that it isn't, like, even when all hope is lost, like, it can still be brought back. So for her, it's a situation to the point they were willing to destroy the Hope Stones totem. So I think, Orlando's speech about that still being a lot, all 7 of those pieces of the totem like still exist in them, and his speech not only returned color to him but to everyone else around him, because he started inspiring them. And in that moment, Kara's like, right, I know what I have to do. So what that is, we'll ultimately have to wait and see. Obviously, the next episode is the series finale. I am watching these one at a time, granted. The series finale review will go up like 15 minutes after this one, so after this one ends up going up. But I'm very excited to see how this all plays out. I mean, it's crazy to think that, yeah, we're here, like, the final episode. I don't know. I don't know. Like, I'm so curious. Like, I think everything's going to work out. Sure, it's not going to be a bummer of an ending. I mean, but we've already had like some like depressing stuff happen already. But I'm really curious to see how this all plays out. I should just shut up and go watch the episode afterward right now. So, but I'm excited to see how the series wraps up. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.